I was waiting for the recording. So, welcome, and good afternoon, everyone, to our Capital Readiness webinar series. Today, we're having a conversation around starting strong, building blocks to a marketing strategy that delivers. And we're excited to have two special guests that will bring some great content to you. First, let me just introduce our organization. My name is Sonia Bigelow Smith, and I'm the director of the Capital Readiness Program that is operated by the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. That is led by Sharon Pender, who is our president and CEO. We are incredibly excited to have this grant where we're delivering and supporting our business owners as they're looking to build their businesses and to grow their businesses. So some of the stuff that we're doing throughout the year is providing programs by way of incubators and accelerators. And those programs that we're sharing, we've had great attendance. I want to see who's out there because we've had some strong registration in our programs that we've had so far. If you have, first of all, tell us where you're dialing in from. So if you can put in the chat, just tell us what city, state that you're dialing in from. We'd love to get some feedback from the room. And if you've participated in any of our incubators and accelerators, certainly put a 1 in the chat and let us know that as well. I see Washington, D.C., Bowie, Landover, Prince George's. So thank you all, Alexandria. Hello and welcome. I do have Cambridge. Thank you, Adrian. And then if any of you, Loudoun County, I see that out there. So we've got a great diverse group in our audience today. So let me just share a little bit about what today will consist of. And let me get to the presentation here. I talked a little bit about our Capital Readiness Program, how we offer incubators and accelerators, and also connect you to a networks as far as our lenders and also contract opportunities. We also, within those incubators and accelerators, have discussions around emerging markets and where those opportunities are as well. This slide just shows a little bit about our impact to date. So since our inception, which has been about 2.5 years, we've had over 600 business owners who have visited our Capital Readiness Center. We've graduated nearly 400 from our capacity building programs, and we facilitated and assisted our business owners with retrieving and securing over $3.7 million in capital. So we're very pleased with the progress, but the challenge continues to improve access to capital outcomes for our business owners. And so while these are strong results, we have a long way to go. So before we get into the presentation and I get our introductions, let me just share a few of the logistics. The recording and the presentation will be sent to all registrants within 24 to 48 hours, so be on the lookout for that. We will address questions at the end of the presentation. Just make sure that you're placing those questions in the Q&A box below. We will use the chat box to exchange information, but we will also use the Q&A box for any of your direct questions to our presenters. So I always like to get started sharing a little bit about our why. 9 out of 10 business owners, and as you know, we are strongly supporting business owners who are seeking capital to help fund so that they can either start, grow, or scale their businesses. But we do know some of the statistics that 9 out of 10 business owners close due to a lack of capital and cash flow. 3 of our other webinars that we've had previously have addressed questions and have provided information as it relates to grants. We've also talked about cash management and how important accounts receivables are. And we had a conversation about cash flow last month. However, what we do understand that opportunities always exist within an organization. And what we've been hearing from the business owners is that operations, marketing, business development, and branding are some of the other opportunities and topics that they would like to learn more on. And so we are bringing that webinar to you today. The most requested topic since inception as far as assistance has been marketing. So I am very glad that this is going to be our fourth and final webinar for this season. We'll have a fresh new set of webinars coming up in the fall. But this topic, our business owners have been hungry for, so we're very glad to have you here to receive this information. So let me get into introducing who will be leading the conversation today. First, it's Mercedes Rojas Murray. She's the CEO and founder of Montage Marketing Group. I have to, just pause and say Mercedes has been incredibly engaged with the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. You see her probably at every event supporting our business owners and also supporting the organization. She has a marketing services agency focusing on marketing outreach, engagement, events, and communications that empower clients to achieve their goals and engage audiences. And she has about 20 years of marketing industry, in the marketing industry, rather, and is a recognized leader in the integrated marketing space. So I'm very, very happy to have her here. In addition to that, we have Philippa Channer, who is a marketing strategist and founder of Channer Consulting. She's a marketing strategist and has a consulting firm that is dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs clarify their message and simplify their content. She works with her clients to build intentional marketing strategies that align with her business goals. And through her workshops, consulting, and signature content clarity framework, I love that, she empowers women to stop guessing and to start growing with marketing strategies that work. So I'm very happy to have both of them here to lead this discussion as it relates to marketing. Let me welcome Mercedes and Philippa onto the screen. Hello, hello, ladies. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing very good.
Excellent.
So, before we get started, and I know Mercedes, you'll be pulling up the presentation. Tell us a little bit about you all, how you got started. Maybe just a few, snippets about your background and how you got started. That adds some context to what I just shared.
Sure. I'm happy to. So I will say that I am an accidental marketing professional. I started my career actually at medical school, not medical school, but I was pre-med when I started college, and quickly realized that was not going to be my destiny. And so I got into the marketing, by happenstance. And I think one of the most important things when you get into a field is that understanding that the field is very broad, right? So marketing is not just one thing. And so I was lucky enough to be able to cut my teeth internationally in the PR field first, then into advertising, and then into events. And when I came back stateside, I went into brand marketing, which helped me to see that side of, if you are on the commercial side of the house, how that all works. And then when I moved down to DC, got into the government space. And so Sonia was kind to say 20 years, but it's actually almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I probably started when I was 2. No, I'm just kidding. So what I would say about that is it gave me a full view of all of the areas of marketing and how they all work together. and how they impact and affect audiences and customers. And so that's been a terrific journey, and I feel like I've been very blessed along the way.
Very good. Thank you, Marcita, for sharing a little bit more about your background. Philippa, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Of course, very similar to Mercedita, I studied criminal justice and did not have any vision of me being where I am now. But as I was waiting for that ideal federal agency job, I was working with a nonprofit and landed in a communications role and learned a lot about marketing and communications through that position and ended up staying there for 15 years. And then I transitioned there to launch my own business and got a lot of experience with social media management and realized a lot of my clients didn't understand and weren't aware of just the value and importance of strategy when it came to how they market their business. So I started leaning more into content marketing strategy so I can educate my clients a little bit more and realized I love that so much
Mhm.
that now I'm really heavily focusing on that marketing strategy, business strategy side of things. I feel like once you have a better idea of the strategic purpose and power of how you market your business, it's so much easier and so much more of an enjoyable experience to market your business than just winging it every month.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you both for being here. Mercedita, I am going to hand the keys over to you to load your presentation up. And then everyone sit back and enjoy the conversation as they guide you through their presentation of Starting Strong. And we'll be back at the end to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be able to share some ideas and thoughts with you as it relates to how do you start strong and really create marketing that delivers. For me, good marketing actually starts way back in terms of a good business approach. And I don't mean talking about or assessing your product or your service or how you run your business necessarily. What I mean is, how do you define your source of revenue and doing that with intentionality, specificity, and precision? If you use a scattershot approach, you're going to hit something eventually, right? But that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of resources. And so if you are able to be focused, to be targeted, and to really go at it with purpose, then that's going to help you exponentially increase your success factors. It might start slow, but once it catches on, it's going to go gangbusters. So that's why, for me, your marketing approach really starts with identifying where your revenue is coming from. And then Philippa is going to take that and then talk about your audience, the tools and the channels that you have available to you to build that. The goal for me in this presentation is to make sure that you walk away with tools, ideas, concepts that you can put into practice today, right? I don't believe in talking theory and, frameworks and stuff like that you can't actually apply. It's really important that what I share with you today is practical and that you can actually utilize it in your everyday. Now, I might present you some things that you already know, or perhaps that you already do. But like all businesses, business is cyclical. You might hit a plateau. So you might grow, and then you hit this plateau and you're trying to figure out how to kickstart it again. Or you might have a growth challenge, or the market has a downturn, right? So the concepts I'm putting forward today are reminders for you on how to apply these concepts in perhaps fresh ways. So let's get started. This is an eye chart and it looks like a lot, but let me break it down for you. It's pretty simple. Really, your very first step is revenue clarity. You have to know these three things. Where is your revenue coming from? How much of it do you need? And how much do you want, right? So these three things are really going to be the foundation. Otherwise, you're boiling the ocean. Otherwise, you're trying to get after everything and you're distracted by the newest shiny thing. And you're not really focused in on what is it that I need to know to get myself to the right steps. The easiest step for me is defining how much you need, right? Because that's pretty straightforward and that's pretty simple. What is the cost of your business? What are your fixed costs? What's your break-even threshold? What is that non-negotiable baseline that you know that you have to have the revenue in order to pay the bills, right? So that is a number that you absolutely have to keep on your horizon, because you know, as you're going after business, you can't go after the long leads and the big swings if you are not covering the basics of what you need to cover your bills. Okay. The first box is where I want to spend some time is, where does it come from? And evaluate, is it good business? So where it comes from, it might actually not be good business. And so you have to ask yourself, is that business that you want to continue to do? Is that business that makes sense for you to continue to pursue? So what makes good business? Is it sustainable? Does it have to be replaced over and over, even if it's a product? Is it profitable, right? So do you spend more energy and money doing it versus getting money in return? Can it be done efficiently and productively? And really, does this customer treat you well? Because at the end of the day, you're spending all of your time at work for the most part. And if your customers aren't treating you well, that's not really kind of the environment that you should be putting yourself into. If it does those things, that's your good customer profile. To make it to the best customer profile, you really want to ask yourself, can this customer grow organically? Will the business grow itself? Can this business be an advocate for me? Meaning, will they be a good referral, a good reference? Will they introduce me to other possible business opportunities? Do they have other departments, divisions, groups, networks that they can help me spider my way into? And can it be long-term? You really want to make sure that you have long-term customers in your mix, because you don't have to want to be chasing after the business development all the time. You'll end up on a gerbil wheel, and that is not what you want to be doing. So take your good customer profile, get it to the best customer profile, and those are the characteristics of the customer that you want to have, you want to be able to nurture, and you want to be able to retain. Lastly, on that right-hand side, how much do you want? Now, nobody can tell you that, right? You are going to have to know what that is for yourself. Make sure that aligns to where you see your business going and how far you want it to go. Some people want it just to be able to have the lifestyle that they want. Others want it so that they can have a lot to be able to do a lot. So it really is up to you. But if you know what that is, that becomes your guiding post for how you take the next step, right? So this is your revenue clarity model. And without it, it is really hard to create a solid marketing plan, because you're kind of going after everything. The next step I would say is your revenue map. So I'm going to spend all of my time talking about the customer segment on the left-hand side, but it's really important that you understand the other boxes. You have to ask yourself these questions, because if you don't answer those questions, you might end up making kind of mistakes and missteps that will take you back a little bit. So all four things have to be thought through and part of your revenue map. But for today, because we're talking about marketing, I really want to focus in on the customer segments. So the first part of your customer segment is, who in your customer base of your is 20% that delivers 80% of your revenue, because that's typical in a lot of businesses. 20% of your customers deliver 80% of your revenue. And that's great, right? So you want to understand the profile of those folks. And this is where AI can come in handy. If you know what that 20% is, and there are specific characteristics about that 20%, put into your AI, if you're using AI, and ask it to model a lookalike customer that matches kind of the best characteristics of your best customers. And ask it to generate either a list based on geography, based on industry, based on what they purchase, etc. That will help you to actually generate a pipeline, if you will. So you're going to do lookalike modeling based on that 20% that delivers the 80%. I'll give you an example. One of my customers is an organization, a federal government organization. They wanted to reach hard to reach populations and communities. And they wanted to do that through language engagement. Well, Montage has a language services team. We have, certified translators and interpreters. We do a lot with different networks across the country as it relates to specific communities and populations. So regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, lifestyle, disability, etc., rurality, geography, we engage with those communities. And so when we look for prospect customers, we identify those customers where that is a priority to them. So I'm not going in and saying, I'm a marketer, I want to be able to market to everybody. I'm not. I'm saying I am a marketer, and what we do best and who we service the best is focused on this very specific market demand. And that's going to help you really hone in on what your customer segments are. The one thing I would say to you is do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't let a customer carry 80% of your business or 60% of your business or even 50% of your business. Really, that threshold is in the 20 to 30%. Why? Something might happen to them, and if they go away, then I only have to make up 20 to 30%. If they go away and they make up 80% of my business, that is a much harder thing to recover from. So really make sure that as you look at your marketing mix, as you look at your customer base, that you are making sure to diversify that portfolio and have enough big businesses that can carry should somebody disappear. Other factors, make sure that in that customer segment, that they are growing, right? So if that customer is growing, you got to find out, why are they growing? What is it that I am doing that helps that customer to grow? Because I need to replicate that and keep doing it. If that business is shrinking, then you have to think about, is the market on a downturn and this opportunity is going to go away altogether? Or do I think it's going to come back? Ask yourself about that customer growing and shrinking, what's impacting that, and how do I make sure that I am two steps ahead of what's happening there, okay? So after you have your revenue map, right, the most important part, and this is where it's really critical, is target your outreach. And these are the steps that you want to take in your intentionality, in your selection of your marketing channels and marketing tools, if you are highly specifically targeted to these 3 buckets. For me, it's important to have low-hanging fruit. So those that are easiest to convert, they're either sitting on the fence and all they need is a little incentive, or they're already buying from you and they can introduce you to others who would also buy from you. They might be smaller. They might be more opportunistic. They might be more transactional, but it helps you to create a foundation for your revenue model, right? So they're the ones that you have to put the least amount of effort against. Those are your low-hanging fruits, and you got to have a pipeline of those, and they really typically stem from your existing business. The second is building your future building blocks. So identifying about 25% of your targets who are in that mid-range, who can bring you a little bit of a higher revenue. They have the ability for long-term growth. They have perhaps the ability to spiderweb into other businesses. Really focus in on, have 3 to 5 of those future building block targets in your mix. And the last are the big swings. These are the Big Mac Daddies that are going to help you grow your revenue exponentially. These are the ones that you want to spend building a relationship, investing, taking the time, energy, and effort. You cannot have too many big swings because the cost and the resource against it is very high. And if you land none of them, that will be also very difficult to recover. So you really got to think about, what are my 1 to 3 big swings? I'm going to invest the time, energy, and effort. I really want to have the goal of landing 1. Now for us at Montage, we look at our big swings as over $1 million, we look at our future building blocks as that 500 to $1 million, and we look at our low-hanging fruit as below 500. If I have the right mix of those targets in my pipeline at all times, and I'm working against those specific opportunities on a continuous basis, the opportunity to convert becomes much higher. If I'm trying to grab at everything that comes into the mix, you're going to get distracted. Time goes by really fast. And if things are not converting, that will create a definite hole in your sales pipeline. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Philippa, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about targeting, but also about how to then create marketing around those customers.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? It worked. The way I'm sharing it, I can't see if my screen is sharing. It says
Yes,
I'm
we
sharing.
can see it.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Mercedita. That is perfect. A lot of what she had to say leans into my conversation. You really don't want to start marketing your business until you have that solid strategy in place. And everything she says really helps and leans into what I'm going to bring today. And so once you have those key points established that Mercedita led to you, then you can start marketing your business with more confidence. If you are still iffy about where your revenue is coming from, your strongest assets, which of your services are the best, and who you're targeting, then you're going to have a tough spot. And so you still want to come up with a marketing strategy that's going to best help you reach the right audience in the right place. And as always, having a strategy in mind, a roadmap in mind, something that's clearly going to help you get in that right direction is always key. So you're not, as Mercedes mentioned, just grabbing at the next shiny thing, wasting a lot of money and a lot of time and energy. Because as we all know, our money and our time and our energy those are our strongest assets, especially our time. Your time is the most valuable thing. If you're wasting a lot of time trying a bunch of different marketing tactics, hoping for the best, you're going to get really burnt out really quickly and start feeling like your business is really ineffective. And so we want to get you in the most effective places. That's going to be marketing in the right places with the right messaging to the right people at the right time. So this message is not going to be about adding more things to your to-do list, because as entrepreneurs, business owners, we have enough on our to-do list to really focus on. My purpose here is to streamline what you're doing, make it more clear and concise so that you can focus on some of the bigger things in your business that's going on. So for your marketing strategy, there's 3 core elements that you really need to focus on. That's who you're targeting, who you're messaging to, what your message is, and where your message is going to land. So we'll expand on each of these more clearly, but your audience is very important, as Mercedes mentioned. Once you get your audience down packed and you know who you're directing your messaging to, then we can talk about, okay, what are you saying on these different platforms? What's the message that you're delivering? Are you really articulating the value that you have and being able to communicate it in a way that says to your customers, your ideal customers, yes, this is for you. This is what you need. And then what channels are you using? Where are you showing up? And this includes both digital and traditional marketing, not just social media, but as well as, are you showing up in person? Are you part of different networking organizations where you're showing up and promoting and showcasing the value that you have? So we'll get into each of those more. Identifying your ideal customer. So Marcia touched on this a bit, and this is key. I feel like this is the foundation. If your ideal customer changes, that impacts and has a ripple effect on everything else in your marketing strategy, because everything relies on who your ideal client is, how they think, how they operate, where they are, what their pain points and challenges are. So if your ideal client changes, all of that will change, which will change your messaging, it may change your channels. It could change a lot if your ideal customer changes. And so you really want to spend a significant amount of time making sure that you do have your ideal customer really ironed out. And you want to think of two sides of the coin. If you've ever done an exercise on building your customer avatar or your ideal customer, there's a few out there that you could play with online that you can help just build your customer avatar. It'll ask a few questions. Usually the questions will revolve around two different areas. First is the demographic side of your customer. These are characteristics that you can see and measure, basically. This is, age, let's see, education, maybe things like gender, stuff like that, that are important to identifying who your ideal customer is, but not as significant as the other group of important characteristics, which are the psychographic characteristics. These psychographic characteristics are more about how your customer thinks, what motivates them, what makes them make certain decisions. So for instance, a demographic characteristic could be if they're a religious person, if you're, your ideal client, if you're looking at maybe Christians or specifically Baptist or Catholic or anything like that, you could measure or categorize your ideal client into one of those categories. However, as you may or may not know, being religious or not all people who quote unquote say they're Christian are living out Christian principles and Christian behaviors. And so how they make decisions, which would be the psychographic details or characteristics, would be, okay, are they making decisions based off of their walk of faith? Are they seeking God's guidance first? Those could be very important questions and details based on the product or service that you have. So that's an example of the difference between demographic and psychographic details and why they're so important. The psychographics are really going to, that's usually the side of the characteristics that leans into why they make decisions to buy with you or how they make decisions to buy with you. So that's why you really want to know, how does your ideal customer, how do they think? What motivates them? What leans them, and what helps pushes them to making certain decisions? And definitely understanding their pain points is really important. And so a quick persona builder, these are some of the things that are like the foundational things. Their name, giving your character a name really helps. For me, I have named my ideal customer, and I have like this persona it's almost like my best friend. And the reason why I say that is when you have a conversation with somebody who you consider a really good friend, it's really different. So if you and I have never met before, we maybe have never seen me before, you could tell me a story. And the level of energy and excitement that you bring as you're telling the story would look completely different if you were telling that same story to your best friend or somebody you're really close with. Not that the story changes, it's just how you show up delivering that story. That's energy that you show up to somebody who you really care about and you're really close to. That's the type of energy and personality we want to see in the content that you create. And so if you create a persona that is somebody that like, and trust, and somebody you're comfortable with, the content that you begin to create, the messaging that you create, is going to come across way more authentic, way more comfortable, relaxed, because you are now speaking to somebody that you're excited to speak to. It's not a forced conversation. It's not I don't know if you've seen it or you felt it. Sometimes when you start a business, you get this, I don't know, this persona that some people put on. They're like, okay, well, I'm usually a laid back person, but now if I'm going to do a video about my business, I all of a sudden become very stoic and very professional, and I start talking in a way that's not me. We don't want to do that. We want to create content and create energy that you're able to be consistent, and that's you, and it represents you, especially if you're a service-based business and they're going to be working with you on a regular basis. If you're a coach, a consultant, they're going to want to see you at each of the meetings. And if you portray yourself a different way, then it's going to feel awkward when you show up and all of a sudden you're more relaxed, but they saw this more professional person online. And so when you create content based off of the buyer persona that you want, and this buyer persona is somebody that makes you feel your most authentic self, it helps you create content that is going to resonate more with the ideal person that you want to reach. And it's going to help you be more authentic and real in how you show up in your marketing and in your messaging. So speaking of messaging, what you say and how you say it is really important. You really want to make sure that you're getting your message across in a way that is simple and clear for your audience to understand. And so your value proposition is very important. You want to make sure you understand and are communicating who you help, the problem that you're helping them with, and what you do. So I have a really easy, simple prompt here. So I help, and I'll just put in mind, I help female entrepreneurs solve what problem? Um, I'll say incomplete marketing or struggling with marketing and I say I help them by coaching and providing them with strategic marketing consulting services. And so on the spot, mine's probably a lot more smoother than that once I had to take the time to write it down. But you can kind of get the idea if you take the time to sit in that and say, okay, that's a good structure to come up with a quick elevator pitch of who you are, the problem you're solving, and what it is you do to help solve that problem. And this is a statement that you can use once you perfect it and you have it in a clear, easy way. You can use this statement on social media. You can use it on your website. You can use it when you're networking and introducing yourself to people. It's a statement that will help just really clearly express who you are and what you do. That clarity piece is so important because oftentimes we get stuck in our expertise. And what I mean by that is if you've ever heard and sat and listened to a doctor or a lawyer talk, somebody who has a very specific professional expertise, when they start talking about their field, they may start using terms and phrases that are very key to their field and their industry that we may or may not be familiar with. We may need further explanation behind what it is they're talking about. Sometimes even, depending on your industry, you may have that same thing. You just don't realize you're doing it sometimes because it's common language for you. It's stuff that you talk about every day. And we tend to get in this bubble of our field, and we don't realize that we start using these terms in everyday language. We want to take a time to step back and check our messaging to make sure that we aren't using phrases in our marketing messaging that may be above our potential client's head yet, because they're still sitting in the problem and they may not be communicating the problem at that more highly educated level yet. They may be still struggling with the issue at a more layman's terms. So for instance, a good example of this would be, it's not my example. I heard this example listening to a podcast once, and it's about a woman. She just purchased a home. She's very excited about her home, and it's her first home that has an in-ground pool. And this pool she's very excited about. She's never had a pool to take care of, so she's excited to have her kids go in it, and just it's going to be something that's going to be a blessing for the family. So a week before the season opens, where she can start to have her kids going in, she opens up, takes out the cover of the pool, and the pool is just flooded with green water. And she has no idea what to do. She knows she can't put her children in this pool with a bunch of green water. So she goes to Facebook groups because that's where she knows she usually gets information. And on these Facebook groups, she's asking for help, saying, "Hey, does anybody know how to solve this issue? My pool is green. I don't can't put my kids in a green pool." And seeing this, a pool company, somebody who works at a pool company, sees her comment or sees her statement and chimes in and says, "Hey, I'd be glad to come over and change your filter for you." And so what happened was there's a disconnect there. Yes, technically the filter is the problem, but her issue is, and her response is, "I don't have a filter problem. My what's that going to do? My pool is green." And so had the person who works at the company, instead of saying, "I can come change your filter," if they responded with, "Man, we hate, green pools also. It's no fun. Nobody wants to put their kids in them. We would love to come out and check your filter. It may be a filter issue. So it's still stating the issue and getting to the root of the problem, but using her words, meeting her where she's at in the problem. Oftentimes being able to articulate the problems that we're solving using the language that our potential clients are using helps us connect with them way much more, helps them feel heard and understood, and helps them feel like, okay, yeah, they are speaking to the problem that I'm facing. They may be able to help me. If you automatically jump to the more sophisticated terms and the real terms of how to solve the problem, they may not see themselves in that yet and may not realize that what you have to offer is actually for them. So the better you know your customer, you know how they speak and how they're articulating what they're going through, the better you can craft a message that is clear for them and articulating the value that you have and how you can help them. Once they're in your circle and in your world, then you can start educating them on the actual terms and being a little bit more professional about it. But you want to get them into that circle. And sometimes they won't get there until you can actually get their attention. And so once you figure out who your ideal client is, you understand and can start creating messaging that's more clear and articulate and showcases the value at a level that they understand. Then you want to figure out, okay, where am I going to be showing up? One of the things I know many clients do is that they try to be on too many platforms. They're like, okay, I have all the social media, and they're like, okay, I'm going to be posting to all the platforms all the time. And if you're a solopreneur, the only person on your team, it's almost impossible to show up authentically with the right amount of energy for each platform. It's just not realistic. What you want to do is pick one platform that's going to be your strongest platform. And you want to pick a platform that not only is comfortable for you, of course, to use, because you've got to be comfortable using it, but you also want to think of your audience. Once you figure out your ideal client and who they are, you want to think about what platform would they most likely find you at and be in the right mindset to be looking at your content in a way that is going to resonate with them, in a way that says, okay, maybe I want to work with them. So for instance, I do my business, my go-to platform for work is LinkedIn. I show up there and that's where I put all my messaging. I do go on Instagram personally. And when I'm on Instagram and I'm scrolling, I'm not looking for, a possible, client. I'm not looking for somebody that I'm going to hire. I'm just looking for funny videos. And so if I see an ad, I'm scrolling past it because I'm not in the mood or the mindset for that. But that's me and that's my demographic and where I would be. And so you want to think of your audience and think, okay, if you're thinking Instagram may be the platform for you, you want to think of the mindset of the person at the time they're using the platform. If they're not in a buying mode, they're more of a, okay, I just need to de-stress and just be entertained mode. That might not be the platform you want to show up. You want to be on the platform where they're ready to engage and looking for information. But back to one platform, you can still have a presence on all the other platforms. So like, for instance, really, confirm and reserve your handle to make sure that you have the space. That way, if your audience shifts from one platform to the next, or if one platform, closes and is no longer around, like for instance, TikTok, if they actually do close for any reason, then you have a backup platform to go to and it's already there reserved with your business handle. You don't have to worry about setting it up, but it doesn't mean you have to show up and engage on those platforms every single day. The other marketing channels that I recommend every business to have and utilize would be your email marketing. That's one of the strongest and most guaranteed ways to connect with your audience. That is the list or the channel that you have the most control over. You get to determine how many emails you send, when you send them, who you send it to. And what can change, maybe you move from MailChimp to Constant Contact, or maybe just using Gmail, but you have that power to be able to move that list. Unlike Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, all of those could change their settings at any time and remove access to do certain types of features within the platforms. But however, email and your website, those are all under your control. And you can, again, set that rhythm of how often you want to be able to send that communication out. And then I always recommend, especially if you're a service-based business, it's almost guaranteed that majority of your business is going to come from your in-person networking, referrals, and relationship building. When it comes to a service-based business, it's really heavily relied on building that know, like, and trust factor. And you can't really do that well just by a totally online relationship. And so always incorporating some type of in-person networking, maybe having tables at a vendoring event, attending different events in the area. Those are great ways to build your network, establish a reputation in the area. So as a CEO of our companies, our goal is to not chase trends. Um, our goal is to build systems that help us get to where we need to go, and that's helping us build towards those goals that we're setting. Just like setting those revenue goals, like Mercedita was setting, explaining, creating that marketing strategy, giving us those boundaries and those filters that we need to keep us focused, so we're not jumping all over the place and trying all the things, wasting that time and energy and money. And we just want to keep it simple, keep it consistent, have simple channels, have a simple rhythm that works with you in terms of your schedule and your availability. If only posting once a week is what you can do it to the best of your ability. I do have a handout as well that I'll put in the chat, so you guys can kind of reflect more on a lot of what I said. A lot of the content in the handout is going to be stuff on the slides. And so these stuff are just kind of restating a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, defining our core persona, defining your core value statement, selecting those channels, and creating that marketing rhythm that you can use. And I believe you guys will get the slides too. And so our being up, I know we got some questions and answers to get to. So make sure that you have that information to connect with both Mercedita and myself. Here is our LinkedIn handles. And I will open it back up to Sonia and Claudia for questions and answers.
Great. Thank you, Philippa. I really do appreciate it. And Mercedita, thank you for your opening. While Claudia is checking for any questions, if anyone has any questions, please put it in the Q&A box so we can get to those. I just wanted to make a comment. Mercedita, in your top, when you started out, you talked about the revenue clarity piece. And I really, really like how you added the context to it. You said, above a million, 500,000 to X and below 500,000. It really kind of contextualized who you were targeting and what type of contract opportunities that you may be seeking. How often do you revisit that? Your revenue clarity strategy? Do you get with your team, revisit that on a quarterly basis, annually basis? Tell me a little bit about what your thought process is from that vantage point.
Yeah, so we look at our pipeline every single week. And so we use a tool, a platform called SharpSpring. But for many, you might have a different, it might be Salesforce, it might be an Excel spreadsheet, and that's all okay. What you want to do is you make sure that you have your targets very specifically listed, what the status of each of those targets are, what actions have been taken against those targets, how those targets have responded. And we look at that every single week. For myself, on a daily basis, I look at my platforms. So I do government contracting, both at the federal government space, the state, local, and then I have a commercial aspect, but commercial is a little bit harder to do. But for federal, state, and local, you can look at the procurement sites, and I look at them every single day. That's my first half an hour every single day. And so I look at them against my targets and see if anything has come up within those targets, or I look at it for an opportunistic aspect, so that low hanging fruit piece. If they're doing an event and I know that I can do that pretty readily and I have a lot of experience there, I might add that into my low hanging fruit pipeline.
Okay, thanks for that. And
Sure.
Philippa, before we get to this next question, the question that we have, I think there's one in the Q&A box. I now I will not forget the pool analogy. So thanks for sharing that. A green pool filter, talking my language, that type of thing. And thanks for sharing a quick summary of the persona builder, because I've seen people get really, really complex with, who the persona is. They're going through all the, I mean, it can get really, intense in determining that. Any, quick, thoughts that you have in terms of how you would advise people to really kind of, use that, don't, you don't want to get too granular, but when and how you want to do that. Anything that maybe that you left out from that particular section of your presentation?
I would say, yeah, you don't want to get so granular. Like, where you want to do get granular is if you want to intentionally detract certain audiences. So, for instance, I want
Mm,
to target growth phase entrepreneurs, the startup people who are still in the startup phase, like if they just started their business last week. A lot of what I have to teach and coach, they may not be ready for it.
mm,
And so that might be something I want to intentionally create marketing messaging that focuses and has language that is really geared towards that, growth phase. And so that's one thing I didn't mention is, yeah, maybe if you want to detract a certain group, you create messaging that hopefully gears towards that. The other thing that I didn't mention too is, you want, this being your business, you want to work with clients that are going to make you happy. Hopefully you get to that point in your business. Maybe at the beginning, you're still doing all the things, you're testing out everything, and you're feeling out what brings you joy, what's right for your company. And so anybody that comes in, you're like, okay, your company needs money. I'm going to take all the clients.
mhm.
Eventually, you're going to start experiencing some clients that just, I didn't like that. I don't like
Ah,
the way they were. I just, you're going to start seeing behaviors and patterns that like just didn't, it made you feel like work instead of, I'm in
I
boss
mean,
mode. It just made you feel, it drained you instead of giving you joy. And
right.
so you can start finding those characteristics and saying, okay, great. I don't want a client that does that. I
Mm,
want a client that shows up like this. I want a client that if I'm going to give them assignments in between our meetings, they're actually going to do it. Or if they weren't able to do it, they had good intentions and they came and this is what they explained and this is what happened. But it wasn't just like, oh, I forgot. Or, oh yeah,
yeah.
oh, you really wanted me to do that? I thought you just, no. Like,
Right.
see,
Very good.
like you want to also think of not just who the client is, what they do, but how do they behave when they show up for you too.
Right.
That's eventually going to be important.
Very good. Thank you. Claudia, I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Yes, there is a question. Is it best for a small service-based business to market the entire company or concentrate on specific services?
So I have a very different perspective on that. And what I would say is if you know Simon Sinek and you know the Golden Circle, Simon Sinek's Golden Circle talks about how to root your brand or your company in the why, right? So what is the why of what you do? Because the what and the how can always change. So back in my day, when I first started in marketing, advertising was, king of the hill. And it was very, marketing was very productized. It was, you know, advertising, PR, promotion, events. But the way of the world changes, right? So digital, virtual, social, all of these things that are now in existence. Had I started my business saying I'm an advertising company, it very much silos you into something that you can't grow beyond. And so, really think about how do you market yourself with a why mentality. Why would this customer want to buy me? Because they want to engage hard to reach communities in languages that they know and understand and in ways using tools that they know and understand. That would be me, right? If I said that I'm just marketing using, make it up, social. Once my audience goes beyond that, then I'm lost. So I would really say, think about what is the why behind what you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And I sometimes what I'll do is I will also lean into my like the service that I want to be known for and really highlighted for. So like I love the mastermind program that I have. I think that adds the most value. So usually when I network, that's the one I lead with. And then as I'm talking to somebody and they'll share like, oh yeah, I was struggling with this. I'm like, oh yeah, I also help with this. So I'll mention the other things as well. But yeah, I feel like trying to lead with, just like you're saying, all the individual services, yeah, people are going to get lost and confused and you're not going to be remembered for a specific thing. But if you lead with the why and maybe one signature thing that you do that has the most value and it really articulates the why, that
Yeah,
helps.
And if you're
I
in the
like
federal
that.
government contracting space, I will say this, and I've heard this from many federal government buyers. If you have 20 next codes, they don't believe you, right? They're like,
Uh,
if you say, I do this and this and this and this and this, and they're like, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. You can't help me,
mm,
right? So you really want to hone in on what is it very specifically that you are offering, because to like Philippa's point, you can always sell them on the back end once you get them, but it's getting
right,
them first that is
right.
critical.
Very good point. Thank you both. And we do have some additional questions. We know that a few folks, when they register, they ask a few questions. So, Claudia, we've got just 2 minutes or so before we close, and we'll get you all out of here as close to on time. If you want to ask one of those questions, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll close up after this.
Sure. How would you tackle a marketing strategy for someone who is multi-hyphenate or has businesses in different industries?
It's a little bit close to that response that you all got. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insert previous response.
Right, right, right.
So
Yeah,
if you have multiple, if your business does a lot of different things, be hyper focused in those specific industries and only talk about that. So, as an example, if I'm going to focus in on my events service, I'm going to go to where people are looking for events, buying events, and focused on events, and I'm only going to talk about events. So, I'm going to talk about with those customers. I'm not going to go to those customers and talk about all the services that I do. So think about it from an industry perspective. Again, I will say on your website, if you are marketing to somebody and they come to your website and they don't see the thing that they're looking to buy, they don't actually believe that you do it. So when you're saying you do all of these things and you have all of these things on your website, you better have some really good past performances, not just one in each. So really, again, focus in on the tools and platforms that you are using, and create credibility there, because you can always sell the other services once you're in the door.
very good. Thank you. Claudia, one more, and then we'll close.
How can I position my business to compete with large labs while building trust and consistent referral volume in a small market?
So what is that one thing that you do that the large labs are hindered by? So large labs have large overheads. They're very expensive. They might have access to resources that you might not have, but you have a specialization or you have something, a niche that the other large labs might not have, right? Perhaps it's a deeper expertise. So what I would say is hone in on what you do really, really well, understand what might hamper a large lab and ghost that, if you will, which means kind of point to some of those challenges that they might have that they wouldn't have with you, and use referrals. So if you have a good customer that loves you, ask them for the referrals. Ask them to be a testimonial on your site or on your capability statement. Ask them to refer you into folks. Use warm leads and make sure that you're using your networks and your connections.
Great. Thank you so much, Mercedita and Philippa. If the audience can give them a virtual round of applause, because I'm telling you, the content was extremely rich. And thank you for sharing with us. In the presentation, like I said, you'll receive the recording. You'll also receive the presentation where you can connect with them on LinkedIn. And if you need to reach out to them directly. On behalf of the Capital Readiness Program, we appreciate you both for not only being some very exemplary business owners leading the charge, but also addressing a why that we've been getting continually. We might have to do a part two if something else comes up later in the future, but we certainly do appreciate the depth that you went through to really kind of help guide and guide our business owners that are here. As far as our audience, thanks everyone for being here and for joining. This was, we've had a series of 4, and I was sharing this earlier. We've had a series of 4 webinars, and this one was the highly registered one. So this one got the most registration votes. So I'm extremely excited that we were able to deliver this in the depth of the content. Thank you. The QR code we have up on the screen, or also just go onto our landing page. So that you can see any of our upcoming incubators and accelerators. They are all funded by the Capital Readiness Program. So your taxpayer dollars have already paid for us to provide you and bring you some continual learning. You can also schedule time by using the intake form, a one-on-one advisory, so we can help you connect the dots. It could be marketing, it could be operations, it could be access to capital and lending that you need. And so we serve as the spoke in the wheel to get you in the right direction. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon. And we will talk to and see and connect it with everyone later. Have a good rest of weekend.